It was one of those quiet evenings when the city seemed to sigh with exhaustion. The lights flickered in narrow alleys, and distant car horns played a tired melody. In a small corner of that busy city lived a man named Arjun. He wasn't rich, nor was he poor by choice. He was simply caught in between, surviving day to day, carrying dreams much larger than his wallet could hold. Arjun worked as a street artist. Every morning, he carried a few worn-out brushes, a handful of colors, and a heart full of hope. He would set up his little easel near the city square, painting portraits for people who often hurried by without even glancing. Sometimes, someone would stop. Sometimes they wouldn't. But Arjun kept painting. He told himself that as long as he could paint, life still had meaning. That evening was colder than usual. The wind carried a sharpness that bit through his thin jacket. Arjun counted the coins in his pocket, 7 rupees and 50 paise. Not enough for a full meal, not even enough for paint. He smiled bitterly. "Tomorrow will be better," he whispered to himself, though he had no reason to believe it. He decided to walk home, his stomach empty, but his mind filled with colors he could no longer afford to buy. On his way, he passed by a small tea stall. The smell of ginger and cardamom teased his senses. He hadn't eaten since morning, and the warmth of the tea felt like heaven in the cold air. He placed his hand on the coins in his pocket, debating whether to spend them. But before he could decide, his eyes fell upon a woman sitting by the roadside, holding a small child wrapped in an old blanket. The child was crying softly, his lips pale and trembling. The woman tried to soothe him, her eyes red from exhaustion. Arjun paused. He could see the emptiness in her eyes, the same emptiness he felt in his own heart. He knew that look too well. He hesitated, his fingers still clutching his coins. It wasn't much, but it was all he had left for the night. He took a slow breath, then walked up to her. "Are you okay, sister?" he asked softly. She looked up, startled. "I'm fine," she said weakly. Just trying to find something to eat for my boy." Arjun looked down at the child again. His small hands clutched the corner of the blanket, his face pale under the flickering streetlight. Without another thought, Arjun took the coins from his pocket and pressed them gently into the woman's hand. "Buy him some milk," he said with a smile that hid his own hunger. "It's cold tonight." Her eyes widened. No, you don't have to." "Please," Arjun interrupted kindly. "It's okay. He needs it more than I do." She looked at him for a long moment, as if searching for something in his face. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "May God bless you." Arjun nodded, gave the child a gentle smile, and walked away before she could see the tears glistening in his own eyes. He didn't look back. He didn't want gratitude. He just wanted the boy to stop crying. That night, Arjun walked home with empty pockets and an empty stomach, but strangely, his heart felt full. There was a quiet warmth that words couldn't describe. He reached his small rented room, bare walls, one old bed, and a few sketches scattered across the floor. He lay down, staring at the ceiling, and whispered, "Tomorrow will be better." Then he closed his eyes, and for the first time in many days, he slept peacefully. The next morning came with a soft drizzle. Arjun woke up to the sound of raindrops tapping against his window. He had no money left, but he still went out with his brushes and his hope. At the city square, people hurried past, shielding themselves from the rain. He set up his easel under an old awning, hoping for just one customer. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop, and no one came. His stomach grumbled, but he kept painting, an old habit that kept him sane. He was working on a portrait of a sunrise, the kind he hadn't seen in a while. The colors were faint, his brush nearly dry, but his hands moved with quiet devotion. Just then, a car stopped nearby. A man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He was well dressed, his shoes shining even in the wet street. He looked around, then his eyes fell on Arjun. "You painted this?" the man asked, pointing at the half-finished canvas. Arjun nodded nervously. "Yes, sir, it's not finished yet." The man studied it for a few seconds. "It's beautiful. How much do you charge for a painting like this?" Arjun hesitated. "I usually charge 500 rupees, but—" "I'll give you 5,000, the man interrupted, pulling out his wallet. Arjun's eyes widened. "Sir, that's too much." The man smiled. "Art like this deserves more. I'm opening a new cafe nearby, and I'd like to hang your paintings there. Would you be interested in working with me? I can pay you for each piece." For a moment, Arjun couldn't speak. His throat tightened. "Yes, sir," he finally managed. "Of course, I'd be honored." The man smiled again, handed him an advance, and left his card. "Come by tomorrow. We'll discuss more." As the car drove away, Arjun stood there in the rain, clutching the money as if afraid it would vanish. He looked up at the gray sky, and for a moment, it seemed brighter. He didn't realize he was crying until he felt the warmth of his tears mix with the cold rain. It wasn't the money that moved him. It was the realization that kindness had somehow come full circle. That evening, as he walked home, he saw the same woman from the night before. She was sitting in the same spot, but this time, the child was smiling, holding a small piece of bread. When she saw Arjun, her face lit up. "You!" she exclaimed, standing up. "I was hoping I'd see you again." Arjun smiled shyly. "How's your boy?" "He's better," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I wanted to thank you. Yesterday, after you helped us, a man stopped by. He saw me feeding my child and asked what had happened. When I told him, he gave me a job at his cafe. Said he admired people who help others even when they have nothing.